Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about our sub-regional grouping, which is local London. As you've already heard, it's currently an 8-borough partnership in the east and southeast of London. And the plan is also for Bromley to come in as part of our partnership. They were part of the skills bit of our work, and we're hoping that on that basis they will also join us for work and health. The lead accountable borough for our partnership is Redbridge, not the City of London, as it says in there, that's incorrect. And the governance for this programme and for the partnership is the local London Partnership Board. And we're currently putting in place some more specific oversight arrangements for the work and health programme that the provider will be expected to work with. So I think the driving force behind our partnership, the reason we came together, was to unlock the growth potential in our area, which is massive. So the area is already changing very rapidly as a result of regeneration, and we're set to experience huge growth in jobs and population over the next decades. So some of our key regeneration areas include Stratford, Woolwich and Beckton, Barking Riverside, Greenwich Peninsula and Woolwich, Bexley Riverside, Enfield and the Lower Lee Valley. So 30% of London's population growth by 2030 will be in that east and southeast sub-region, and a projected 400,000 new jobs by 2050 potentially. Our vision is to ensure that all our residents have access to the skills and employment support they need to benefit from those job opportunities being created in our region over those decades. We want to increase our employment rate, improve outcomes for residents, many of whom have suffered from amongst the highest levels of deprivation in the country for far too long. So in terms of the local context, the boroughs have a total population of more than 2.2 million, which is nearly the size of a small city elsewhere in the UK. And when we were doing some skills planning, it's really important to remember that scale, because although we're one sub-region out of London, there are a lot of nuances and a lot of variation across the sub-region which need to be taken account of. So we have many of the characteristics of an outer London labour market, such as lower wage levels, lower levels of skills in comparison with the rest of London. 9% of our residents have no qualifications, and 40% have level 4 and above. But a lot of the changes happening is because of inward migration, so unemployment has gone down and skills have improved. And although that is in some part to the work that's being done in the area through regeneration, it is also in part due to in migration. Our employment rate is just under 72%, so we have slightly higher inactivity rates than the rest of London. Again, huge variations within the sub-region. And those that are economically inactive are further from the labour market and less engaged currently. And we've historically had high levels of health-related inactivity through incapacity benefit and employment support allowance claimants. The sub-region has a strong track record of partnership working around employment and skills, and several boroughs, including my own Greenwich, run successful existing employment support services. And we're very much looking to the providers to work with those existing services where they're in place. We also want providers to work very closely with local authorities around employer engagement. Local London boroughs have well-developed relationships with local employers, particularly through the regeneration programmes. And in addition, the local authorities are major employers in their own right and have leverage through the planning system and local partnerships such as those developing around skills. In addition, we spend billions of pounds in services through our own procurement across the sub-region. So a lot of levers that we can bring to the table. Okay, so in terms of the design of the programme and the funding model, within the variations that we were allowed to make, sorry, no, emphasis on service integration to ensure there's a joined-up and collaborative approach to addressing barriers to work. In particular, we're keen to ensure that there's a single point of contact for routing wider referrals through to Job Centre Plus. And we want providers to work with local organisations and build up a supply chain and a partnership relationship with the community and voluntary sector, the wider public sector, and particularly with specialist health provision. We will also be looking for potential providers to make links with existing provision and borough employment programmes where they're in place. And in terms of priority groups, again, we've been heavily hit as a result of the benefit cap, and many boroughs are working with individuals and households who have been affected by the benefit cap as a priority cohort, along with those who are heavy users of services, so in contact with more than one public authority, reflecting in many cases the complex barriers that people do have. So our payment model will be very similar to the other London contract package areas. A significant proportion of the contract value, approximately a third, will be paid as a service fee. The remainder, and the majority of the funding, will be paid on results based on the payments for earning outcomes, which is pretty much in line with the DWP model. There are some variations from the other under specifications, and there are 2 points particularly here. One is that we will be placing a particular emphasis on supporting clients to engage with the labour market, even if they don't go on to achieve the payment by results qualifying sustained outcomes. And this will be reflected in our delivery expectations underpinning the service fee, and will be very much around key milestones that reflect specific points in the client journey. And on the payment by results outcome, there will be one stage payment. There won't be a follow-up payment beyond what is set out in the DWP model. So, look forward to hearing from you all and to reading about exciting proposals for local London.
Thank you very much, Jane. So, now I hand over to Dan Gascoigne from the West London Lights.
Thanks, Graham. So I'm going to say a few words about the approach we're taking in West London. And first of all, for those that aren't aware of where West London is, because it's fairly self-explanatory, but the 7 boroughs that comprise West London are on the slide there. I think it's fair to say that West London local authorities have been working together for a long time, since really the late 90s. And that gives us a real strong sense of what it needs to be a partnership, where we can add value by working together, but also where we can add, that actually means where we can add value locally through working together. So it's not just about collaborating at scale. I think the Work and Health programme is an opportunity that our boroughs were quick to realise will be a great way to demonstrate how we can scale up some of the work that many of our boroughs have already been piloting for a number of years. You'll be aware of the Mental Health Trailblazer programme that is about to go live in West London, which is a programme we've been developing over the last couple of years off the back of a growth deal. We've also got some more local place-based employment support initiatives which our boroughs are leading on, which are showing some really good outcomes, and we'll be seeking to draw on the evidence that we're getting from those to inform the Work and Health programme as it goes forward. Our lead local authority is London Borough of Ealing, who also host my team, West London Lions, and we're really looking forward to engaging with you all to make sure this is as successful as it can possibly be. Just a quick word about volume. So you've heard the numbers earlier on, so up to around 12,000 referrals over 5 years or so of the programme. I think the numbers could be higher, but one of the things we're keen to emphasise is the importance of quality and the evidence base of outcomes going into this. So that's absolutely critical. I suppose in terms of the overall numbers, that's getting on for a quarter of the total eligible claimants that are in West London at the moment. And important to say that this programme is all about outcomes. I'll talk in a moment about what that might look like and how we think the quality aspects are really important to that. Just touching on cohorts. So as well as the DWP early access groups, a bit like local London and indeed I'm sure the other sub-regions, it's important to us to engage with those groups who are further to the labour market, but particularly those that are, frankly, costing public services a lot of money for all the wrong reasons. And we're keen to work with people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, people in touch with children's and adult services, people in touch with drug and alcohol support services to ensure the best outcomes for those groups. In terms of the payment model, so we're looking at potentially a service fee of greater than 30%, up to perhaps 50%. And we'll be talking to potential providers through the dialogue phase about how they can demonstrate the outcomes and the quality that I'm talking about and the evidence base for that in order to justify a higher service fee. The rest will be paid on results, and we're looking at London living wage over 16 hours of 26 weeks. Last slide is about working together. So we've heard a lot about integration today. Really, really important, obviously, and a big part of the differentiation for, I think, the approach that's being taken in London generally. In West London, we've got a really good track record and a long history, as I said at the outset, of integration, of working with partners, not just our boroughs, but also other partners in the public sector. And in fact, some of the work I'll point to, as well as the examples, the local examples of projects that I mentioned before, and the work we're doing not just with boroughs, but with health partners and Job Centre Plus, DWP. We've also done a lot of work over the last few months developing the strategic plan for North West London under the Sustainability Transformation Plan with the NHS, and that's an important piece of context as well. And there's work that we've developed to feed into some of the activity there, particularly on the prevention side, where I'm really pleased to see the sort of shift in attitudes actually across the whole system towards recognising job outcomes as actually really important to health outcomes and to preventing higher costs in the system further down the line. So that's something else which I think we'd like to sort of talk about with providers as we go through the process. That's enough.
Thank you very much, Dan. Terrific. And thirdly, Paul Hadfield from the South London Partnership.
Before I tell you a bit about our plans for the Work and Health Programme in South London, I thought I'd start off by giving you a quick introduction to the South London Partnership. We're the smallest sub-region in London, made up of 5 boroughs. And we cover a part of London which has significant opportunities for growth. And this potential for growth is due to a number of factors. I just quickly wanted to touch on those. Firstly, our location, which is a key strategic asset, being located close to central London, but also between the 2 main airports and growth corridors, including the Gatwick Island and South Coast M3 corridor in Thames Valley. Secondly, we've got a world-class economic sub-region with strengths in the tech sector, life sciences and sports sciences. We have a highly skilled workforce, we offer excellent quality of life and a vibrant entrepreneurial culture. So, although we know that the economic contribution and potential of this area of London has a lot of potential, it's often been overlooked, and we're committed to changing this. And I wanted just to plug this document, our growth proposition, which has recently been published, which is on our website and sets out our ambitions for supporting growth across the sub-region. So if you want to find out more about our ambitions and our aims and objectives, it's in that document. So, turning to the South London Work and Health Programme, the context of this is that the 5 boroughs are committed to working together to add value for our residents. And there are parts of the sub-region where there remains high levels of persistent long-term unemployment. So we have some wards in the sub-region which have unemployment over 11%, and we've over 16% of people with no qualifications. And of course we know that these factors damage the social and economic well-being of our residents. So the boroughs are determined to work together with businesses and with service providers to reduce long-term unemployment across the sub-region. Now, We estimate that there are around 75,000 people living in the sub-region who would be eligible for the Working Health Programme. And in terms of where these are, the majority of these are in Croydon, which has about 42% of those people. And then Sutton and Merton, which each have around 17%, and then Kingston and Richmond, which have about 12% each. So the South London Working Health Programme will, we hope, benefit a small but very significant number of these people. So our thinking is that we very much want the focus to be on helping those people who face multiple barriers to returning to work. And that means that we're very keen that it should prioritise those people who have disabilities and others who are heavy users of local authority services. So the 5 local authorities were recently asked to identify gaps in local services for the Working Health Programme beneficiaries. And you can see the gaps identified were things like lack of independent, high-quality benefits advice, lack of childcare support, support for care leavers, support for young people with special education needs, people with disabilities, European nationals, secondary health care users, over 50s, ex-offenders, refugees and black and ethnic minorities. So those gives you an idea of what the local authorities see as the priorities for the Working Health Programme. Co-location. So we envisaged that the Working Health Programme caseworkers would be located within existing local services as much as possible. So, for example, they could be co-located in local authority access centres or in Job Centre Plus offices or with voluntary sector organisations offering health or employment services. So, as a result, service providers would, we hope, have access to things like desk space and meeting room space, interview rooms, Wi-Fi, etc. Successful integration and collaboration are critical features which will determine the effectiveness of the Working Health Programme. And the appointed provider will lead on the integration of local services around the individual participants' needs for employment and related support in a way that best achieves programme objectives. So we would expect the service provider to embed services within the local service provision. So this could include developing collaborative work and joint working, or establishing referral pathways with local colleges or with health services and specialist health and employment projects. So to assist with this, there will be a local authority officer who would be the single point of contact within each of the boroughs, and they would be able to assist with the local integration of the services. Finally, I just wanted to touch on the funding model. So, as in other sub-regions, there will be a payment by results-based funding model, but this will include a service fee and additional payments for learning outcomes. And in South London, we're looking at one earning outcome which would match the DWP model, and a further payment to incentivise higher earnings and longer sustainable employment. So the reason for the higher earning threshold is that we are keen that we want to ensure that beneficiaries secure as much as possible high quality sustainable paid employment.
Great, thank you very much. And then last but definitely not least, Bill Davis from Central London.
Great, thanks very much, and hello again. I'm just going to talk very briefly about who Central London are, and then briefly again on what a couple around design. So, who are we? Central London Forward. Central London Forward is a 12-borough partnership whose lead accounting body is the City of London Corporation. We were established back in 2007, and our purpose is to champion the collective interests of Central London's residents and their businesses. But in addition to that, to provide a platform for public policy experimentation and also for collaboration. What we do? Well, we've been around for a while now, so we do lots of things. We've set up a number of different employment support programmes and skills programmes over the years, including support for the SA claims and also schemes to support the training of local construction workers too. We are governed by a board of our member boroughs, who provide strategic oversight, and we'll do so for the Work and Health programme, where we'll have an employment and skills board. We'll set the strategic tone for the programme and strategic decision making. This will be a combination of leaders and chief execs. And then the day-to-day management of operations at CLF is done by the Central London Forward Programme Office, and they deal with management of employment programmes, and will do so on this occasion too. But they will also be supported by our 12 member boroughs who are keen to be closely involved in the day-to-day supporting the delivery of the programme. Not just with their integration plans, but also in supporting the programme on a wider basis towards continuous improvement. What do we want out of the programme? Well, CLF wants to appoint a provider who will deliver employment support to help people find good quality, steady work. But what it does do, having learned from the experience of previous employment programmes and the risks associated, it expects all participants to have had the opportunity to improve their health and also their employment prospects while being on the programme. And we will set out in the specification what we mean by that. The programme will have a number of minimum expectations for it too, around the quality of assessment, around the employment and health support quality that we expect to be delivered through the programme. But really there isn't a single answer or silver bullet to this issue, and we really encourage providers to consider our broader framework and be as creative as possible, which we think is really, really important in this space. Finally, on this point, our boroughs are working really, really hard to put together detailed proposals for how they can support this concept of local integration. And collectively, they put together for the specification a really detailed list of things that they can offer the programme around health support, around co-location opportunities, around strategic leadership, help identifying key people within the area. And what we do expect in response to the procurement processes for providers who have thought long and hard about how they're going to work with the boroughs, because it's the integration of this programme that's really going to make it a success. And as part of this, boroughs and ourselves will be working closely with health partners to ensure that the specification, when it is released, has options for providers around the integration of local health services too. Finally, just on the funding model. This is a payment by results model that will include a service fee that we expect to be worth around 30% of the total contract value, paid at regular intervals. And we also want to incentivise a number of earnings outcomes. So one, we want to match the DWP's model, so a participant earns, say, circa minimum wage at 16 hours for up to 26 weeks. But we also, given the differences of the London labour market and the differences of our programme, want to incentivise providers to press on. So we'll be also setting a higher earnings payment and weighting this accordingly. And then otherwise, you're encouraged to be as creative as possible and to think really hard about what the evidence base is, but also what our boroughs are bringing to the table and how you can fill in the gaps in those processes. Thanks very much.
Right, thank you very much, Bill. So, you've had a lot of talking and hopefully useful information. Now we've got a good chunk of time for questions about anything you've heard today. I'm going to ask my colleague to ask people to come to the front to join. I'm actually going to stand there to make an extra space because there's an opportunity to ask questions now about anything you've heard. It would be helpful if you could identify who you want to direct the question to. So if from this morning there's anything about the sort of pan-London design of the programme, Bill Davis, another panel, who can take those questions. David Willigrap from Ealing is also still with us, who can answer, particularly on the first stage of the commercial process, and then obviously representatives from each of the 4 sub-regions. Joe, picking up questions from Central London. It would be helpful if you could indicate, if it is a question directed to one of the specific panel members, to indicate that. And I think I'll take questions in groups of 3 so we can get as many people in as possible. I've got 2 colleagues, Jenny and Jane, who have got mics, so do wait for the mic to be passed to you so that everyone can hear your question. So if you indicate if you want to come in. 1, 2, to start with 3. Yeah, let's take those and then
Thank you. Jamie Banks, Diaspora. Two questions, very quick ones. The slides, will it be possible for the slides to be circulated to everybody? And the second question is for the East London area, in respect of the results situation, what is the expectation for the interval and number of payments which there will be?
Okay. And yes, sorry, yeah. And please do, as identify yourself and your organisation, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, hi there, I'm Beth O'Shea from Twig Group. One of the speakers from West London, it's Dan, it's not specifically just aimed at Dan, but it was the only presentation that showed the match funding for ESF. So just interested, there was a bit of a mute towards the Brexit idea. So if we're tendering right now and we're uncertain about the ESF component, what will happen? Because obviously with a 5-year lead-in, if we've got 50% less funds to use, it's not going to be 50% less referrals. So just interested in what might happen there.
Yeah. And then just the front, yeah. Just on front.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Slate, the Employment Skills Policy Manager at London Voluntary Service Council. I've actually got a question and then a statement. My question is what are your thoughts in terms of the 4 sub-regional partnerships of how we can access particularly small community provision? Because these cohorts that we'll be working with will be in a much more vulnerable state in terms of both a physical and mental health disability, as well as being out of work. So it's really how we can access those small community-based organisations that have a real track record of getting people, almost you could say, employment ready. And my statement is that I think I've been in touch with some of you, but just to be aware that at London Voluntary Service Council we actually receive funding from EPMU, it's called VC Assist 2.0. So we're here to support you strategically to engage the market, as well as our delivery partner Economic Unions to deliver that frontline support of getting small organisations to be part of your supply line chain.
Thank you, that's a terrific offer. I'm sure people want to take that up. So on slides and right up until today, absolutely. So things will be sent out to people who came today, but they'll also be available on the City of London's online procurement portal so that everyone who wants to be involved in the competition can see the material. I might just quickly bring it out to somewhere from GLA on the ESF match point, and then sub-regional colleagues might add to it, but I'm sure Alex can be the best first to go.
Strong answers on that. I'm the European Programmes Director at the GLA, so we're responsible for both the ERDF and the ESF programmes. As to your question about ESF and Brexit, well, I guess the first thing to say is that the government line on commitment to EU funds is quite clear. It's that funds should be continue to be committed until the point of Brexit, and when they are, the contracts will be honoured beyond Brexit. So ostensibly, the funding is there, including post-Brexit. That's the government's stated position. As I think Dan was alluding to others, of course, we can't be exactly clear how things will pan out. I think the hope and expectation is that whether we use European social funding or some kind of replacement employment and skills funding that may come in after ESF is there, that the programmes will be able to run to their fullest possible extent. And that's the intention. Clearly, worst case scenario, if for whatever reason that didn't happen, we would still have some very significant sums of funding. But the expectation is that funding will be available, probably European social funding, if not something similar.
Yeah. So I think the expectation is that when we launch the program, we will be as clear as we can about the commitments we can give on ESF funding sub-regions, I think the speaker is to do as much match funding as we are able to do. Jane, I might ask you just to come back on the question about payment schedules to the extent you're able to.
Okay, as I understand it, it's the service fee that we're going to use to incentivise payment for progression towards employment. The payment by results element will be paid on in terms of people getting into the sustained job outcome as defined by the income bracket. So it will be the service fee. And I can't tell you at the moment how many payments there will be, but I would think we'll want to go with something fairly simple, but it will be linked to the client journey.
And then, if anyone want to put their hand up about the community engagement and the supply chain, Jo, you're sort of nodding, so I might call it.
Okay. Thoughts on how we could sort of access local provision for Central London, and I'm sure some of the other sub-regions as well. That will be driven by our local integration plans. So we have 12 boroughs across Central London, and they have been heavily involved in helping us design our programme specification. And within that, we're expecting that organisations will tap into local services. We've had support from health organisations, NHS England and Public Health in designing the programme as well. And then we would also, and there would be more in the specification, but we'd certainly be encouraging people to bid either through a consortia or with a diverse supply chain as well, and that would bring the local organisations in. And our idea is that the programme will be developed over time, so we've talked about testing and learning, and some of the learning from our current programmes that we run through CLF as well. So the idea is that it will evolve, so the way that we started will look potentially different with it over the next 5 years.
Did any of the sub-region colleague want to come in on that?
Just to say, I think, as I sort of touched on perhaps in the presentation, I think it is both sort of bottom up in terms of the very local work that's happening within and between boroughs, and obviously a lot of the design, all of the design for the programme in West London has been involving all of those colleagues locally as far as possible, all the way through, and that will continue in terms of how we access local services. I think we're also putting in place an integration board across West London, so that will have some oversight of how strategically we're managing the process of integration, but also just to welcome the offer in terms of any opportunity to pick up your contacts there, as you were saying. So.
Yes, thank you. Can we just check, people in the back here, or do people need to hold their mic closer, or is everyone okay? Perfect. So I have Kirsty in the back, and then was anyone else who wants to come on the next round? Yeah, 1 and 2. Perfect.
Thank you very much indeed. We've been investing a huge executive of we're faced in the room. We've been supporting the devolution of funding in London and G10 on the grounds that A, moving more money into the pot, and B, this promised a greater degree of integration. But what I've heard today, I think we are likely to get a greater degree of integration. But I wanted you to say a bit more about the relationship with Job Centre Plus. We had an event with the Learning and Work Institute 2 weeks ago, where the Director of Contracting Services at DWP seemed to be saying that work and health programme procured nationally would be almost a provision of last resort, in that JCP would be encouraged to put people through a range of other things, and if nothing else worked, then it would be a work and health programme. I chaired the market engagement event in Greater Manchester last week, and there, we're looking at it very differently. It's about early intervention and getting people to good quality provision earlier. Now, the relationship with JCP is going to be crucial, and I wanted to know what assurances there were going to be that the right people are going to come through to the programme at the right time, and that there was going to be an ongoing relationship between the London for procurement bodies, the governance, and JCP, so make sure this runs smoothly.
Great, brilliant, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Shansia from Maximus. Can I ask 2 questions, please?
Of course.
Thank you. So one is for all the 4 sub-regions across the city. Can you just clarify what our engagement as providers should be with local authorities? I'm just conscious that some of us were able to speak to some local authorities, and other local authorities haven't spoken to potential providers. And linked to that, can you clarify the status around local authority delivery arms, whether they can be considered as part of the supply chain or not? Second question is for David, WLA. David, I noticed on your slide you had pricing offer would be taken into consideration, so leaders are encouraged to potentially offer lower unit cost. A bit of a statement before my question. My statement is I have a bit of concern over that given how small the amount of funding is on the programme, and how that might encourage poorer performance. So linked to that, what's your scoring divide between price and quality?
Great, thank you very much. And then just behind that.
Hello, my name is Richard Brooks. The question I have is with regards to the higher earnings payment. There's been hints about higher earnings payment being included into programmes for quite some time. I wondered how you're going to construct that and what the total value of the programmes will be linked to that payment and how it will be measured in over what time frame, etc. Thank you.
Okay, so let's dodge around a little bit. I wonder if Bill, you could take the Curtis question about the Job Centre Plus link. Because that's the planning on the implications.
Yes. So this is something we are concerned about, and we've put a lot of time, thought, and effort into working with the DWP to ensure that this relationship functions successfully, and that there are formal mechanisms so that we can manage that relationship. One of the things in the agreement, I think I can say this. We have an agreement with the department which basically sets a Pan-London governance model which has specific responsibility with basically shared between the 4 sub-regions and the Department for Work and Pensions about managing jointly the referral process but also the functioning of the referral instruments so that if things aren't going right, if we're not getting the volume of people onto the programme or the wrong people are going onto the programme or too many people indeed are going onto the programme, then we have effectively a formal mechanism that will meet regularly to make sure that those processes are actually in place. So this is something we are very, very aware of, concerned of, and we've I think, taken the right steps to make sure that we can make sure it works.
Great. And then on shortest 2 questions, I wonder if, David, you could take the one about the pricing and the unit cost issue, and then maybe I could ask each of the sub-regions to say a little bit about how they might want to engage with providers. Perhaps you could also get the point about local authority delivery in the supply chain.
When you get hold of your slides, on slide 16, you do a very simple calculation where you have the number of referrals, which we're hoping will be very close to the number of participants. And our view is that that is actually, for an employment programme, quite a substantial sum per participant. And we think that within that envelope we can provide high quality services. In terms of offering increased referrals, i.e. decreased unit cost, we will, speaking for WLA, we will have a theoretical floor that if you bid underneath that, we no longer think it is sustainable to do a high quality intervention. Does that answer that one? Our thinking on pricing is 60 quality, 40 commercial.
And do you have, sorry, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
Are you able to clarify now what the minimum benchmark would be in terms of, or would that be the spec? That would be made public.
So now I could just ask each sub just to briefly say what their plan is about engagement. We've had that kind of another time too. Joe, maybe you could kick us off and you could work down how you're wanting to talk to providers.
I guess we're still bottoming that out in terms of the information that we can share publicly and wanting to be as fair and transparent as possible about the discussions that we're having. So at the moment, from a Central London point of view, we're asking organisations to contact us directly rather than each individual borough because they're so involved in helping us to design the specification. And we're ultimately, people from our boroughs will be involved in the selection and the procurement as well. So in order to remain as neutral as possible, at the moment we're directing people towards our events like this. We are planning potentially to hold a subsequent one, and then we may have a look at something that focuses just on Central London as well.
Down in West London?
Yeah, we're not planning to put on a West London market engagement event per se, but again, very happy to support these London-wide events, especially at this stage in the procurement process. Clearly, once we get past the first phase, we'll be looking at an intensive process of dialogue with those shortlisted providers, as David was talking about earlier.
But you would want potential bidders to come to WLA rather than to each of your member boroughs?
I think that would be better, yes.
And Paul?
So, yes, we're keen to engage through this event, and we very much look forward to another event where more organisations from South London would be able to attend. I think from the South London perspective, the fact that we're a small partnership, we've only got five boroughs, but we have a track record of the boroughs working together, and particularly kind of the people who know other kind of partnership people who know the community organisations, and they're going to be key, I think, in terms of engaging and promoting these kind of events and starting kind of conversations.
And Jen?
Again, we haven't got any plans for follow-up specific events like this just for East London. I think it's probably fair for people to contact through the partnership, and we'll endeavour to put information together for the sub-region. And I think, again, there are people within boroughs who won't be involved in the procurement process who could be very helpful in finding the right organisations for people to contact.
Great. And then on the question of the higher earnings payment, obviously this is an area where there are differences between sub-regions. David's given the view of WA. Maybe, Bill, as I know you've sort of looked across the details, maybe you say a little bit without getting into every single bit where people broadly are on that.
Yeah. So, as Graham implied, the models are very, very different and are incentivising very, very different things. There are some similarities with at least two of the sub-regions. The way Central and Forward are coming at this is from the objective will be to first and foremost meet the Department for Work and Pensions sort of original threshold of say circa £3,000, which is based on national minimum wage times by 16 hours times by 26 weeks. Now, in the context of London's labour market, we think that target is perhaps too low. London's labour market is different from the national labour market. Earnings even at the bottom end of the labour market are a little bit higher, and therefore what we want to do is to try and incentivise providers to not just hit the DWP threshold, which we think is important, but also push beyond that. So we are constructing, it will be a single extra payment point. It won't work like the sustainment fees of the work programme, for instance. But what we hope it will do is incentivise providers to push on a little bit further, to provide further in-work support, but also to think a little bit longer and a little bit harder about the type and quality of employment that they are getting for clients.
And we're going to just say how we're going to split in terms of percentages.
I don't think it's appropriate to bottom out the weights here, but we will be reviewing that in the specifications in the coming weeks.
Okay. More questions? Anyone else wants to come this round? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, please.
So, Faye Thomas, Kennedy Scott. For the national framework, we have to go through a passporting process that gives an annual indicative contract value that needed to be achieved in order for you to be able to bid as a prime. Does something similar apply here?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just further back.
Jason Joy, E+.
Say the mic.
Jason Joy. Is there an indication at this stage of how many successful primes in each region, or will it be different per region?
Great, thank you. And then lady just behind.
Hi, Abby Conway from Working Links. A follow on to that really, just a little bit more clarification about specifically shortlisting and deselecting partners at specific stages.
Yeah. David, I might come to you most of those, if that's okay. Because they prefer most of the first stage.
SSQ stage will have financial criteria that you need to pass. Given that the London CPAs are smaller than the CPAs procured centrally by DWP, those will that gives opportunity for smaller scale organisations to act as prime. We are planning on, for each sub-region, a shortlist being taken forward to dialogue of 5 in each sub-region.
Was it just more about the shortlisting? Was your question? When do we drop out, essentially?
The 2 selection points, SQQ takes you from however many bid to 5 per sub-region, and the final tender goes from the shortlist of 5. I think if there's a draw, you will have 6 potentially, but I think the nature of the scoring is slightly unlikely. In West London, we are reserving the right to 2 bidders, but there are just 2 selection points, one at the end of the SQQ stage and one on final tender.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Anything this right outside of the room is very uninquisitive. Any other questions from that? Yeah. Oh, you got to come again. So, anyone else on this round? No. Okay. You get another go.
Sorry, David. Just clarification points that you made just now. So.
Just give us a second to get the mics in so we can see. Yeah.
Sorry, just clarifications on the response David just provided. So, am I right in understanding that at the SSQ stage, providers will drop down to 5 invited to competitive dialogue?
Yes, 5 per sub-region.
5 per, okay. And then WLA reserve the right to appoint 2 successful primes. Is that the same for all the other sub-regions, or is that just WLA?
That's just WLA.
It'd be great to check that for the other sub-regions as well.
Yeah, please do.
So we're aiming to appoint 1 for central.
Yeah, 1. So I think what we're saying is 1 for every sub-region other than WA may appoint 2. Any more questions at all? Yes, go to the back, and then gentleman here, and then gentleman there. Perfect.
Because the other thing on the commercial point that mentioned consortium JVs, given timeline, I suspect that's unlikely unless people already pulled them together. But could you give a bit more information about how they're going to be assessed? Experience has shown that they've been scuppered by the financial criteria and the lack of track record. So some clarity there. And then the other thing is there going to be any sort of market cap? Could somebody come in and win all 4? Or actually, are you going to say there's a maximum of one in London?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the market cap. Kirsty,
okay. And then gentleman at the back.
Thank you, Edward Hickman from ATQ. Just a quick question. Is anybody here from JCP Plus who can help answer Kirsty's question from before about the sort of priorities and so on?
I don't think Job Centre Plus from DWP, yes. Don't know.
There's a pretty key relationship with how JCP works with providers. So
yeah, okay, yeah. First, let's do Kirsty's 2. I don't know who might be able to take the point about joint ventures.
So on that, can we come back to on that, and we'll publish that as part of the include when we circulate all the material. I don't want to say something in
and on the market cap point?
On the market cap, there isn't one. There's not. Sorry, there isn't one in post WWP, is there? On that.
So let's just
So I'm looking to DWP because I know that there's 2 issues here. One of which is whether London is part of the cap for DWP as a whole. Within London, with relatively, as I said, smaller contract values, providing you're financially able to meet financial criteria within SQQ, it is quite conceivable that one provider could be appointed, the same sort of provider could be appointed in all 4 sub-regions.
Sarah, yeah. Yeah, can you please comment?
Sarah Mulcair from DWP. I work on the national procurement team, and I'm also leading on the procurement for London and Manchester. What we're doing at the moment is obviously working very closely with Job Centre Plus. Speaking up on Kirsty's point before, there will be a very key relationship between the role of the person who we're calling a gatekeeper who refers to the programme and linking in very closely with the providers. Does that answer the question for JCP applicant? Yeah, and in terms of the cap, if there is any type of cap, it would not involve London and Manchester, because the way this has worked, because we've devolved the funding to London and GM, then these are their procurements that are run with the support of DWP, so therefore they will be excluded from anything to do with the national programme in that sense. So if London or GM, well, it would be London because GM is one contract, if London decide to place a cap on it, that would be London's decision to do that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, actually, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Richard Brooks again. I'm just curious about the MI stroke sort of data related to engagement with participants on the 4 different programmes. Are you going to be producing a single system that you will use without it? But, or are you expecting the providers to provide one to you? Right.
Bill, is that something you...
I think this is one for Joe.
Thanks. We will be expecting providers to come forward with a system that we would use for the programme rather than central London. Oh, sorry. We would be expecting providers to include what systems they would use to track MI when they're responding to the bid rather than central London providing the system. And then that system would then ideally would be some sort of shared portal that our borrowers would be able to access as well to support the local integration.
Okay.
I think it's worth adding, the data. It's worth adding the data collected will need to be ESF compliant, and better if you collect it in one system.
Anything else? Anybody? Yes, 2 more things. So maybe and then
From Parrot and Prospect Services. Would referrals from Job Centre Plus come via PRAP as they are doing on the national system?
yeah, I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes. Yes. Is that the same question? Right. Yes. Yes. Second.
Alan Toller from TWP Solutions. I just want to ask whether the service fee arrangements that you have in mind at the moment are set in stone pre-procurement. And one of the reasons I'm asking that is that I know there are a number of small providers who have the expertise to work in working health programme outside London, who are looking at the 30-70 model and can't make it work for them in terms of cash flow. And I'm slightly concerned that in central London forwards you've actually added on an additional element, which means you could be working with the customer for even longer before you achieve the outcome payments. So is there any flexibility there if you're adding on a second outcome issue? Can you have a look at maybe raising the service fee element slightly, because that would help more subcontractors get involved? And secondly, just the accelerator model is to be used by DWP outside London. I haven't heard that mentioned today. Does that mean you're not planning on doing that?
Okay, so why, maybe Dan, you can say something about services, because I think you're potentially in a slightly different position to some of the other sub-regions, and then anyone else can chip in as well if they want to.
Well, just to reiterate what I said in the presentation, that we're looking at up to 50% potentially, and that'll be part of the conversation we have with providers.
And would anyone else want to say anything about their service fee and what they're looking for? No? There's a bill on the accelerator model.
Yeah, no, I can, just on the service fee, I mean, not everything is entirely set in stone. But we think relative to previous programmes, the service fee paid regularly set at 30% is not, comparably very bad at all. The second thing is we're not intending to use an accelerator model. We think it adds needless complexity, it adds financial risk, and it comes back to a point that, for smaller organisations, an accelerator model is actually quite a difficult prospect because it transfers a lot of the risk further up and makes capital requirements more difficult. So no, certainly from CLF's perspective, and I think speaking from all of the other sub-regions' perspective, we won't be applying an accelerator model. Is that right?
Yep. Great. Anything else? Yes, Jim.
My name is Bob Marsh. I'm from Cardiff in the UK. We're specialist support for deaf people and one programme working with specialist employability support. My question is more like Walker's for the working health programme regarding access to work. When the work programme and work should first occur, I want to make it explicitly clear that deaf people or disabled people were eligible for access to work support. Some of the winning trial will call out the fact that access to work won't determine valuable for deaf and disabled people on work programme and work choice. On the specialist employability support, access to work is valuable for deaf and disabled people. But I'm just wondering on a working health programme, because it's imperative for the pricing model for all the trial to include the cost for things like communication support and interviews for deaf people. Thank you.
Yeah, I think on the issue of access to work, we haven't bottomed that out yet, but I think what we would be expecting is that if we can't come to a satisfactory arrangement on access to work, then what we will be doing is expecting the provider to come forward with alternative arrangements that will support people access the labour market in those ways.
Thank you. Yeah, gentlemen, just...
It's Graham Parry from Groundwork. It's a question that's been asked in several different ways already, but I'm wondering if we can get a little bit more clarity on it. Fundamentally, following on Kirsty's point, do we have any transparency about whether JCP have been regarded this as a programme of last resort, as seems to be the rest of the country, or a programme of early intervention? It will have a massive difference to our engagement strategies, and hence probably the service fee that we're looking to pitch in with.
I don't know that I can say any more than I have already, other than that we are working closely with DWP and we are putting together a memorandum of understanding between the 4 sub-regions and the department to make sure that that relationship is as functional and successful as possible. And we'll also, as sub-regions, we bring together also our local relationships with Job Centre Plus 2 that we'll be using. So I suppose it's bottom-up and a top-down process of just trying to make sure that relationship works as best it can. I'm not sure I can provide any further guarantees other than we're going to do everything we can to make sure it works.
Kim from WLA.
Hello, I'm Kim. I work with the WLA, and I've been talking to Job Centre Plus and others about how they envisage this working. My understanding is that there is going to be a significant upskilling of the work coaches in Job Centre Plus, and the expectation is that they will proactively work with clients until the point that they think that they're not making progress. Now, they will have to do some sort of assessment where at what point the client needs more specialist help, okay? And the client is expected to get work within 12 months of entering the programme. So in terms of, are they going to be really easy to employ or find employment for, or really difficult? Or are they likely to be people in the middle? Well, they're people with a reasonable expectation who are likely to find work within 12 months, who have been given some help by Job Centre Plus, but they maybe need more specialist help. So you might, for instance, expect Job Centre Plus to be able to send somebody on an ESOL course and do some one-to-one CV interview training. But if the problems, if there are significantly more than that, it may be that they choose to refer them on. We don't have clarity, but I hope that gives you some idea of process and the considerations that will go forward. Also, Job Centre Plus will be taking into account there are relatively few places on the Work and Health programme, and there's a unit cost of about £2,000, roughly, give or take a bit. So, you're placing your intervention in that sort of space.
I suppose all I would say in addition is that obviously we're working within the parameters of cohort as determined by DCP and a referral process that involves a job centre gateway. So those are fixed things that we are working around. Personally, I haven't heard of or thought about such a sharp distinction between programme of last resort and programme of early intervention. And I think probably we need to take that away and think a little bit harder about the implications of those things, because I suppose I don't quite know what both those two ends of that spectrum mean in practice, and what scope that then we do have within the parameters that we're working to design it in the most appropriate way. So I think that probably is something we need to further some conversation about. Yeah, 1 and 2.
Hello, Heidi Bush from Mind. My question's about the cohorts of people going through the programme. We know with the national programme there are a cohort of people that are mandated to go onto this, and other cohort that is voluntary. Will you be following the national programme in that respect, or will you be mandating other groups?
Yeah.
GP India about Blue Sky. In terms of the local integration plans and the local integration board, will they include representatives from Job Centre Plus to avoid some of the situations we've spoken about in terms of ensuring there's consistency?
Great, thank you. Bill, can you get the mandation protocol?
Yeah, so it was a condition of the DPP that we mirror their mandation, I suppose, framework. So, yes, basically the 17% of people who are long-term unemployed will be mandated and the remainder will not.
And then maybe somebody could say something, because I'm intending to draw a slide close, and people may want to pick up on anything that's come up. Maybe in some remarks from each somebody, they could pick up this point about kind of local integration arrangements, the extent to which around the kind of core parameters of the programme that we're working, we can try and make sure that we have a good working relationship with Job Centre. Maybe start with Jane and then work along.
I think we've always felt that Job Centre Plus are a key partner, and through experience of running other programmes, they've always been involved in our partnership arrangements, so yes, I don't see that being any different with this.
And in terms of your sort of local integration, they would be presumably part of your arrangements?
At borough level and at the sub-regional level.
Yeah, similar really, in that we've already got relationships with PWP and local authorities, and that's going to be key to developing effective integration.
And same again, I think we've got a really good relationship with DWP and Job Centre Plus within West London. Certainly the experience we've had over the last couple of years of the relationship has been really positive. Job Centre Plus already sit on a health and employment programme board that we've got that's been overseeing some of the other projects, and we'll strengthen that relationship going into the integration board.
Very similar for Central London as well, echoing the previous comments. Absolutely see Job Centre Plus and DWP as part of the governance for the programme, both at a local borough level and also a sub-regional level as well. And JCP and DWP are part of an existing steering group that we already have for our current employment and skills programme, so we would want to continue that and expand on it for the work there.
Obviously, the question about the data and the progress has been, one that we've talked a lot to DWP about, and we will, will be kind of key operational question. But I suppose what the greater ability to raise, there are problems around how the referral process is working, for that to be identified and dealt with much more quickly than was previously the case. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. You've got to have most.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Brand and marketing. Greater Manchester are using the Working Well brand, not using the Working Well programme brand. I think that's wise. I think you should have a separate brand in London. The other thing is you've got a programme here where you've got mandatory and you've got voluntary referrals, which could be quite tricky to sell. I mean, those mandatory programmes haven't always had the best reputations in some parts of the press, so make sure you get that right, because we want people to volunteer for this. So it's more of a comment, I suppose, rather than a question.
Great. Is there anything that anyone on the panel wants to say in addition to any other messages they want to get across to people in the room? We prefer that cover what they want to say. Fantastic. So I think I've reached it early. So thank you very much for your time. I hope this has been useful. Obviously, it's an evolving conversation. As I said, all the materials and the Q&A write-up will go on the City of London procurement portal, and you'll hear more from us